Hey guys, it's Leo with the Dreaming Tree and welcome to the Father's Day SVG bundle tutorials. And as you can see here, we have our 3 items all done up and ready to go for Father's Day. So I do want to talk just a little bit about all the items here. So we can begin with our cute little box here. And as you can see, the nice lid comes off here. There's a little rosette on there. And it's styled after a dress shirt. As you can see here, we've got a nice little tie here with a little offset portion of the back of the tie just to make it more realistic. There is a little pocket in here that has a tiny little note card that you can write something in. So that could take the place of a card for Dad, since this doesn't actually include any cards, this bundle. But it's pretty straightforward to put together. This is probably the easiest item in this bundle to put together. So we used mostly white cardstock, as you can see, and this pattern paper here, because it's for a guy, we decided to use some striped patterns, and believe it or not, this paper is actually from an Echo Park Christmas bundle, which you can actually find the link to or find more information about in the supply list section on the product page. So aside from the basic construction, did a little bit of embellishing by putting a little star-shaped rhinestone here and some gold pearls, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit. There's some gold pearls up there as well. And again, overall, this is a very simple box. It's a very good size. The dimensions as well are listed on the product page. And this, being a decent sized box, is going to be able to hold a decent sized gift. You could definitely, if you fold them properly, you could get 2 or 3 t-shirts in here probably. So definitely a tie, anything you could fit in this box, obviously. I don't know your father very well, but I'm sure you do, or at least I hope you do, and I'm sure that you can fit something nice in there for him. So that is that, which leads us to my favorite piece here, the trophy. And this one probably takes the most amount of time to put together, only because we're working with a structure and then overlaying some panels on it to give it a smooth look so that it's not all rigid. So you've got your nice little base here. When I saw the design on this, I thought that, you know, the colors that we had used are sort of put here to sort of mimic a nice felt on a trophy. I did see a comment, someone asking if we were going to possibly include some additional plaques, but actually this plaque here comes blank. There are some little positioning cutouts on it to help you place the word Dad accurately and precisely. You can easily remove that and customize this for whatever you want. So it's actually a very good size, as you can see here. And I know for some people this may not be appropriate, but me and my dad do enjoy having some drinks. So you can easily put a gift card in here, a cigar. I went to my local liquor store and just picked out some shooters here just to pop in there. And you know, aside from Father's Day, there are so many other possible uses for this, which we'll get to here in just a moment. So aside from the basic construction, as you can see, we've also sort of embellished this with rhinestones, actually all rhinestones, and it's completely optional, but we took some silver, actually some gold string here that you can tie all the way behind it just to kind of give the impression that this little ribbon is hanging off of it. Did fill it with some crinkle fill just to kind of make it look nice inside. And you've got yourself a really cool, one-of-a-kind handmade gift for Dad or some other occasions, like I said, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. So last but not least, oh, and before I forget, by the way, we wanted to give this a authentic look. So these panels here actually took through an embossing machine with a Doris wood grain embossing folder, which is also linked to in the supply section. So last but not least, we have this brand new paper sculpture, which is a little bit different than the paper sculptures that you saw during our initial release and even some of the ones that we've released since that initial release. As you can see, this one is very dimensional. I would say, if I recall, probably 3 or 4 layers of dimension on this. And I would actually venture to say that this is the easiest to put together. We've made it so that it's very easy to assemble. Of course, you're going to have an assembly video that's going to walk you through it. Positioning these pieces is very simple. I tell you exactly where to place the 3D foam squares or pop dots. I prefer the foam squares, but you can use pop dots. And this one definitely goes together probably the quickest. So you will need a 12 by 12 shadow box, which I have seen plenty of at my local Joann's, and I was actually just at Michael's today as well, and I saw shadow boxes there as well. So we did this in very graphic colors to really give it a lot of light. But if you have someone with a lake house and they have specific colored decor, I know that up north in the North Woods, things are very woodsy, you know, so you could easily do this by utilizing maybe 3 or 4 tones of a brown, or maybe even just using shades of white and gray. As you've seen and as I've seen with our previous shadow boxes, we really cannot stop your creativity and how you see this, the end result when it comes to this. So I always look forward to seeing how yours is going to turn out. But it's a great little piece, very simple to put together, and I don't have the glass on this right now because I don't want the glare hitting it. But once you put the glass in there, you can easily do some vinyl work on there, which I have done actually in the past on a couple of the pieces that we've released, just to customize it. So this would be a great piece for someone's lake house. You can put the name of the lake house. I know when I've been up to the North Woods there, everyone seems to have a name for their cabin. You could do that. You can put the person's last name, your last name, whoever you want to give this to, or if you're making it for yourself, you can really customize it in so many different ways. So I can't always see what you see when you see these projects as far as how or where you can use them. So I just want to take a minute to highlight some of the comments from the trailer that we posted on Facebook and kind of give you some insight into what our other fans see as, you know, the possibilities for these projects. Our friend Ray says, "So cool. I'm going to convert the trophy into a spooky Halloween goblet. Can't wait to play with this one." And actually, Ray, you know, as I was putting this together, I was thinking about my Halloween party that I throw every year and the fact that I have a costume or a costume contest. And in past years, I've actually gone to the local trophy shop and ordered a trophy for that. And that, as you can imagine, can get sort of expensive. And aside from the traditional trophy, there isn't really much else to customize except for the little cap on top, which they don't really give you too many options for. So I promise you, and I'm actually excited to convert this guy into a Halloween version cup for my next party, where I could actually take this embossing that I have here for the wood grain and use like a spider web or something. I may try to find something that's dark and metallic for the trophy itself, and then dress it up with all sorts of, you know, Halloween related motifs and elements. So I'm looking forward to that. I see great minds think alike. Leslie O'Donnell says, could definitely use this shirt and tie box for a retirement present. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely fitting for retirement, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you so much, Leslie. Linda Carey Rosati says, I love all of them. You can use the trophy for Dad's Day. Coaches, gifts, so many options. And actually that would be a really great gift for a coach, a trophy, especially if they led the team to a championship or whatever, or even if they didn't, it would still be a great little gift. You can put something in it, a gift card, whatever it is that that coach likes. It would be a really great little keepsake for him or her. Marge Wiley says, great for First Communion chalice without the handles. And that is actually another thing that I noticed while I was putting this together, because based on the order in which this is assembled, or at least the way I did it, I didn't put the handles on until the panels and the basic construction of the actual trophy or cup were complete. And as I was holding it, You know, being raised Catholic and going to a Catholic school, you see this image a lot, and I thought, wow, that is just a perfect chalice. So this would actually be great for a First Communion gift. I guess you could put it on a different base or keep it on the same base, but definitely fill it with a gift for somebody that is, you know, finishing their First Holy Communion. So thank you for that comment, Marge. Our friend Becky Harrington says, I love the wall art. It would be perfect for my son's house by the lake. And that's exactly that's exactly the reason that we created this, was to be it could be a housewarming gift for someone that just bought a lake house, or someone that retired, or someone that just bought you know, some new property up in the Northwoods, or whatever it may be. So I'm glad you see that as well, Becky. Thank you. Diane Vogue says, I have graduation on my mind. The box and trophy could easily be adapted for that. And I completely agree. Graduating is quite the accomplishment, and I do believe that it should deserve an award or a trophy. Roberta Sadler says, I would use the box to put a gift in for a dad-to-be. That's another great idea. Doesn't necessarily have to be a dad. It can just be a soon-to-be dad. So that was a wonderful idea. So as you can see, there's so many different possible ways to modify or alter or adapt this for your special occasion. So I always look forward to seeing your work, and I'm hoping that you do just that, and if you do, post a picture on Facebook. So without further ado, your respective assembly video will begin now. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to begin by putting together our base, and we're going to start by putting together the walls of the lower base, as we'll call it. Okay, and that is made up of these pieces here. So just go ahead and get everything folded over at the score marks. It will make our lives a lot easier if we do that ahead of time. Okay, and just do the same thing with this piece. We're going to join these two pieces together to form the wall of the lower base. Okay, and just move this out of the way for a second here. This large little triangular tab, we're going to put some glue on it, and we are going to work that glue out to the edge. Make sure we get that nice and covered. And I'm just going to lay this down on my mat flat and just kind of glue that into place. And then before it has a chance to set, I'm going to flip it on itself and push down using these angles here as a guide to make sure that I have it lined up perfectly. And I'm going to hold that in place for, I don't know, a good 10-15 seconds just to make sure that it really gets a grip. Okay, here we go. And while it's still flat, I can flatten it out completely and grab this other triangular tab and put some glue on that. And just work that out to the edge. In the process of doing that, I'm kind of flattening out the glue to minimize spillage, so it doesn't come squeezing out and mess up our paper. Okay, so that's nice and lined up. All of these angles are nice and aligned, and it sits nice and flat, which means that we have it pretty much perfect. Okay, and then we can go ahead and kind of fold these tabs in. We'll probably end up folding them out slightly in just a second here, but that is roughly the shape of what we're going after. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab this blue piece. It is a liner piece, and we are going to just kind of jam it in here to begin helping this thing form its final shape. Okay, doesn't matter which side's which. Just kind of want to get this glued into place. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that. And I am going to add glue to these tabs here. Now you're not really going to see this, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And I would concentrate the glue in the center of the tabs here. because you don't want it spilling out. All we want is for this to get a good hold and to help us just kind of begin forming the shape of this base. Okay, I'm going to flip it over and let that little liner fall, and then just glue that into place. Just kind of working your finger around, pushing this in up against that liner piece, like so. Okay, just like that. Get a nice, just kind of like that. And if you have a piece that didn't hold completely, it's okay. Just add a little bit more glue and push down and get it to hold. Okay, so once we have that piece in place, we can go ahead and put the bottom on. This is technically the top, okay? And I'll show you how that all works here in a second. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start with the largest tab here, get a little bit of glue on the inner part of this tab, and then work a little bit of glue out to the edge, and go ahead and really work it and caress it up against the edge of that piece there. And we're gonna be putting some panels on there, and I kind of caked that on a little too thick. I don't want the paper to warp, so I'm smoothing it out. Get that nice and aligned with this edge here, like so. And push that down. Okay. And just make sure that that gets a good grip. You can then take this and fold it like this on your table and push down with your fingers there. Okay, so we have, this is the bottom again. Okay, and at this point, you can go ahead and put glue on these remaining tabs here. You kind of have to do these all at the same time, because otherwise it may be a little difficult to close this up. And when we're dealing with exterior pieces like this, I definitely want to get really clean seams. So I'm always going to put a little bit of glue towards the edge and work that glue out to the edge with my finger or with a Q-tip or with your glue bottle. I just like using my fingers. I just feel like I have a lot more control that way. Okay, and then we can go ahead and close this up. And don't feel like you need to get this perfect. If you don't, you can always clean it up afterwards. And I'll show you a little trick. And I've shown this trick multiple times in the last half dozen or so videos, but there's always going to be new people that are watching, so I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, but I just want everybody to have the best possible experience with this, so I will go over these tips numerous times as I see fit. Okay, so here's a good example. You see how that didn't get the best hold. So what I'm going to do, if I can find it, is grab my spatula. I always keep a piece of scrap paper that I can just kind of apply some glue to, so that I can take my spatula. And you can do this if you have a razor blade. Actually, my spatula is a little dirty right now, so I may just want to use my razor blade because it's the thinnest thing that I own. Okay, and it's really good for kind of getting in those little nooks and crannies. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of glue on the tip of my razor blade and find this little area here. Just kind of lift it up and get a little bit of glue under there. And then almost immediately push and hold that down. Just applying the force to get that little seam, that little edge to really stick. Okay, and now you see the difference. It looks beautifully, or beautiful. Beautifully perfect, I should say. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and go around and just kind of clean this up in the little areas that I'm not happy with. Okay, this is optional. Depends on, you know, how much tender love and care you want to put into your project. I'm just very got that perfectionist mentality where everything needs to be perfect, but in most situations, people won't really notice. You are always going to be your worst critic, but that's okay. Maybe they will notice. Okay, so you can see there that that looks nice and crisp and perfect, and I'm very happy with it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a little structural piece to kind of give this thing a little bit more support, especially if we're going to put a gift inside of this. Okay, so this is our little structural piece. It's one piece that makes up a box. So all you want to do is fold everything at the score marks and begin forming a box. Okay, what we're going to do is put some glue on this tab here. Okay, no one's going to see this, so if you get a little sloppy with your glue, it's okay, but we do want to try to make this thing as perfect as possible because the other pieces sort of center around it. Okay, so I'm just connecting that tab that I just put glue on to the other end to begin forming our box. We can actually lay this flat, and that always helps make things more perfect. Okay, so there we go. And then we can just go ahead and pop these tabs in and close this box up by putting glue on these 3 tabs and then the other 3 tabs on the bottom. Doesn't matter which one's the top, which one's the bottom. It's, again, it's going to be hidden away, so it doesn't really matter. But do your best to make this thing as geometrically perfect as possible. Okay, so that's good. You can go ahead and close this up. And we don't need to worry about seamless edges at this point, but as you're bringing this down, lift these up a little bit so that as you're bringing them down, this thing grabs more of the surface area of the glue. And then just gently push there. You don't want to push down too much because you'll kind of knock the tabs out of contact with that piece. Okay, so here's our little box. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue this box right into there. So go ahead and get a good amount of glue on there. Don't glob it too much. Try to make it thin. And go ahead and place that right in the center there. And just push and hold that down for a few seconds until it gets a hold. Okay. So that is all well. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this piece over this piece. Okay, and that's going to create the top of our lower base. I'm going to kind of get these tabs out of the way and slide them over this box. And make sure that when you're sliding it, I'm going to slide it just like that, and it should fit perfectly. Okay, we do need to glue it, obviously, to the base. So just make sure that this little box in the middle has had ample time to dry. You may just want to kind of leave it like this while you get your glue in here. And I'm gonna work my glue out to the edges here. Okay, and I am gonna smear that glue all the way out to the edges, just to make sure that we have a nice clean seam, because this is gonna be visible. Okay, and you have 8 sides, so you gotta kind of work quickly. Okay, and again, I'm taking this glue, working it out to the edges, as you can see there, hopefully. I should probably change the camera angle since I'm right-handed. It probably wouldn't obstruct your view as much if I did that, so I may do that for the next video. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. Okay, so that's good. We can go ahead and push that down. And if you need to kind of shimmy it a little bit, you can. And just like we did with the bottom, if we need to sort of go in and clean this little piece up, we can most certainly do that by touching it up with a razor blade or a spatula, but because we pretty much had it in place, I don't think that's going to be necessary. It's sitting really pretty. If you had a little glue that came out, I find that you can always kind of just rub it off, and it seems to come off if you have some excess. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, and then what you can also do to sturdy this up even more is just add a little bit of glue on these little triangular tabs here. These are going to be hidden eventually, so they don't have to be perfect. Just a little dot there just to kind of get it to hold. It's going to make this thing nice and structurally sound. I kind of joke, and I have what's called the wall test. I like to, if I could, before I filmed everything, I would love to take things and just throw them against the wall and see if they hold up to that kind of stress. And usually if they do, then we've done a good job engineering them, but I'm probably not gonna, I haven't been doing that lately because I've been putting together the final prototypes here, or not the prototypes, but the final products, and the prototypes just, they're not as fun to break. Okay, but there you go. Okay, so we've got that piece. And while we have this, we could technically go ahead and put our little panels on. Now you have these little strips here, and I have actually already embossed these with the Doris wood grain embossing folder. Okay, and it's gonna kind of make it look like a wooden frame with like a felt top. Okay, so that's kind of the look we were going for. And I'm gonna go ahead and get my little panels glued on. So you have a total of 8. They only fit on a specific side because, well, because each side is a specific size, so your panels are only going to fit in certain areas. So just go ahead and get all your panels glued on to the appropriate side. Okay, so I have mine there. I'm going to go ahead and finish that up all the way around, and then we can begin working on the next section. Okay, so we pretty much have one half of the base assembled. The next portion of this is almost identical to the first portion, except that the second part of the base is a little bit taller, okay, but a little bit less wide. And we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to take all these tabs and just fold the tabs and fold everything at the score marks, just like we did the first time. And we're going to join these two pieces together, just like we did the first time. I'm going to make sure that, actually I don't really think, yep, that's how it goes, like that. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this tab here. Now this is going to be what I would call recipient facing. So we want to do our best to get this nice and perfect. And just remember that this is paper, and paper breathes, and we're human. We're not robots. We do our best to get everything aligned as best as possible, but there's always going to be a little bit of a margin of error, so don't feel bad if things don't come out perfectly. Okay, but we're just going to do our best. And we're going to grab this tab here and do the same thing. Going to get that glue out there. There we go. And get that glued into place. Just kind of tuck that in and line that up nicely. As you can see, I'm doing it flat because it just allows me to ensure that I'm getting it nice and perfect. And you can see that these two angles here meet up perfectly. So that tells me that I'm definitely in the ballpark. Okay, all right. So that is coming out really nice. Okay, and just like we did the first time, we are going to grab a liner piece. Okay, so it's this one with the L on it. And we're going to pop it in here. So let's move these tabs out. And just pop that in. Pop that in place. It's going to help shape this thing. Let's close this in so our liner doesn't pop out. And this being a liner, it's not going to be seen. So all we're going to do is just put some glue on the inside of these tabs, just like that. Hopefully you can see that through the little hole there. And this is a symmetrical piece, so it really shouldn't matter which way you put your liner. So I'm going to tuck these back in, put this down so the glue is on my table. Well, it's on the tabs that are on the table. And then we can just go ahead and push down with our fingers to help form the shape of this thing. Okay. There we go. All right, so that is good to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the bottom of this. Okay, and let's try to get some out to the edge as well. So we want to try to get this nice and flush with the surface that we're putting it on. Don't want any little corners peeling up, anything like that. Okay, so we're just going to slide that over. Try to get it nice and centered, and then just apply even pressure on all sides of this. And just hold that in place. You can kind of push down with your fingers in here a little bit. Get that to really hold. Be patient. If you want, gently use a dowel or something to kind of push that down. Get it to stick nicely. Okay. All right. And we have another little piece here that we're going to glue down like this. Okay, so let's actually start by just gluing one tab down. And get that glue out there. That might have been a little too much. Okay, I'm going to pop this tab up. And you just want to, let me scoot over a little bit, a little far from the camera. Just want to go ahead and get that nicely aligned. And this is a liner piece. No one's going to see this. We are going to put one more piece over it, but still want to be pretty neat with this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to get our glue on all of these tabs now. And we also need to get a little bit out to the edge. Okay, and then we're also going to want to put just a little bit of glue on the interior of this red portion here. Okay, just a little dot's fine. That's just going to help sort of stabilize this whole piece. Okay, so pop those in, make sure they go in, and then go ahead and make sure that all those tabs are getting a nice grip here. Okay, if you need to kind of scooch some things around a little bit, that's fine too. Okay, just try to apply a nice even pressure. All right, and then we can go ahead and close that up. Just finish off that top by putting glue on this whole thing here. And don't go too crazy with the glue on the edge here because we don't want that top piece of paper warping. I'm just smearing it out nice and even all the way around, like that. And I'm gonna pop that right on top. All right, and just hold that down until it dries. And if you need to, go in and clean any of that up. If you didn't get nice clean seams, you can go ahead and do that using that little trick I showed you with your spatula or your razor blade or whatever it is you want to use is fine. Okay, and just like we did with the bottom, we have some embossed pieces for this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get those glued into place. Okay, then we can start working on our cup, and we'll call it a day here. We're almost done. And when I glue these down, I'm gonna probably adjust them so that they're up a little bit. So if you have any imperfections on the red part, this can kind of cover it up, because you can't really see under there, but you may be able to see here. So if you lift this panel up just a tiny bit, it will cover up any little imperfection you may have and just make your project look that much more professional. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my panels on. Yours may not be embossed, which is fine. I think the embossing is really cool, so I definitely recommend it. It'll definitely make it look more authentic, which is definitely cool. And then we will meet up at the next step here. Okay, so while we're kind of working on the base here, I'm just putting together the little plaque, I guess you can call it. And I've got my little pick-me-up tool, picking up the letters. I already did 2 of them. And I'm just kind of pre-squeezing the glue bottle to get the tiniest little drop out of there. And you can see why I love this bottle. I can really just put little tiny little dots of glue on this with like awesome precision. And then I don't have to worry about fumbling around. It's on my pick-me-up, and there are some little guides right on this little plaque to help you place this correctly. Okay, so there is our little emblem, or plaque I should say, and I am going to actually pop dot that right onto the front of my little box here. So I'm going to do that later on. Okay, but at this point, why don't we just kind of pre-assemble some things before we get on to putting together the actual trophy. So there's not much left to pre-assemble, but we're going to go ahead and just get some things pre-assembled here so that when we get to the big hurrah here, we've got everything, all our ducks in a row, so to speak. I've got this little ribbon that we're going to glue together. I took this top layer and I embossed it with a nice little dot embossing folder. So I'm going to glue that flush to the top of this piece here. So I'm just going to align the top there and just make sure, just running my finger along the top there, just making sure that I've got it nice and aligned. Keep a nice even border all the way around this. Okay, so that looks good. All right, and then we have this little scalloped circle and this little white piece that you can, well actually, you know what, before we do that, why don't we just go ahead and glue this to the back. You'll notice that there is in fact a little guide to help you position this properly. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the back. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right about there and just dabbing it so it doesn't smear. Okay, and I'm going to put this down, and I'm kind of just using that guide to help me place this accurately. I'm going to push down, get that in place, and then take my little caption. You can write whatever you want on there. If you have a stamp that fits that space, by all means, go ahead and pop that on. And then there's my best ever. My dad gets the best ever award this year. There we go. Okay, so that's pre-assembled. We can put that off to the side. And now we have some handles here. And you want to put them back to back. And I want to keep my texture side out. And all we're doing is we're gluing the handles. We're not going to do anything with the tabs yet. The tabs are going to get glued to the interior of the trophy. So we don't want to put glue on the tabs. We just want to put glue on the handle. Okay, and just glue that back to back, just to kind of thicken it up. Run your finger along the handle just to make sure that you've got everything nice and lined up. You can put that down on your table and push that down. Okay, and then we do have little panels that are going to go right over that. I did ink these. This is like a new sort of well, for me it's new anyway, gold foil. It's not as thick, it's easier to work with, but it is a white core. So I did end up inking the edges with a gold ink so that you don't see any white. Okay, so you want to just get that glued on both sides of your handle. Okay, and then we are pretty much ready to go ahead and assemble our actual cup. Okay, so you're going to repeat this for both of the handles. You want to assemble the other handle and then put your little panel on it to make it nice and pretty and shiny. Okay, so that's what it should look like. And then when we put it in, we're going to feed it in and glue the tabs to the inside. So there's our handle. Make the other one, put it off to the side, and we'll go ahead and finish this guy up. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin assembling the actual cup itself, the trophy, whatever you want to call it. In Chicago, we call it the cup because we've been lucky enough to have it in town a lot this decade. So just go ahead and fold all of these little pieces at the score marks because that is going to help make sure that we get this in its proper form. It's just going to go together much easier. The angles are going to be easier to glue together, and it's not going to fight you along the way. There won't be any resistance. It just will kind of fall into place. So let's get all of this stuff nice and bent. And it's all one piece. You just have to kind of glue it together. Some days I kind of wish that the machine would just do the assembly. And who knows, maybe someday it will. Wouldn't that be something? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are simply going to connect these pieces, the tabs, the little triangular tabs, to their neighbors, and this is going to be bending out this way, so you can train it back again this way as well, and that's a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by just going to do one tab at a time. I find that when I do that, things just work a lot better if I don't rush and match these angles up appropriately. See how I'm getting that angle there? You don't want to overlap the little score mark. You want to kind of get it pretty much right up to it. If you were looking at it through a microscope, you would almost say that you're kind of halfway on it and like you're basically in the center of it. There we go, just like that. As soon as you get that bottom one in place, the rest of them kind of just fall into place easily. Now remember, this is going to have a panel on it. Okay, so any imperfections will be hidden, but that doesn't mean that we don't try to get this perfect, because we want it to look nice and symmetrical for us. Okay, so you see what I'm doing? I'm going to do 2 of these with you because it is sort of a redundant process. The big thing here is just to make sure that you're getting a nice line here and that you're nudging things and butting them up correctly. Okay, so I've got those 2 connected, and literally all the way down the row, you are just going to repeat that same process. I'm just going to connect the next one to its neighbor, just like that. Just hold that in place until it gets a grip. Make sure that you've got a nice angle there. Okay, and you can always fold this piece back since we haven't glued it yet to put your next little piece of, or apply your next bit of glue. Okay, and again, the big thing here is just making sure that you're getting the angle correctly and giving it ample time to dry. And it's kind of a meditative process. Very repetitive, but your eyes and your brain and your hands are all engaged and focusing on this one little task at hand, and all your troubles are just kind of melting away. Just glad that. And I swear the more focus you have on this, the better you feel when you're done. So don't worry about cleaning the house. Don't worry about all the things that are troubling you. Just focus on getting that angle right, and just work your way down until we get to the end. And I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose here so you can just repeat this process until you get almost to the end where we're going to join the 2 sides together. Now that process is pretty much identical, but I want to make sure I walk you through it. So go ahead and just keep working your way around, and I will meet you at the last step here where we go ahead and put this thing together to make it one solid piece. Now I want to come back here and kind of pick up and just give you a little tip here. Now you'll notice that as you're working your way down the row here, you may have to be a little bit more careful about getting everything aligned. Okay, so it may require that you kind of nudge this part out a little bit to ensure that you're getting that angle perfect. Okay, if you overlap it, it's going to throw it off a little bit. So just make sure that you're really following that angle and getting everything perfectly aligned so that the next step in the process is even more seamless for you. Okay, and when we get to the end here, which we're about to get to, when we glue this piece together, there may be a little bit of resistance while it's trying to take its final shape. Okay, and it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get your fingers in there, but I designed it in such a way that your fingers will fit. It's going to be a little more challenging, but we wouldn't design anything that we're not confident that you could make at home. So, okay, so I'm doing this last piece here, and now we're going to go ahead and close this thing up. Okay, so as you can see there, it's going to go together like that. And I am going to glue the bottom part first, since that is kind of like a straight angle. That's going to help kind of set the tone for the rest of the tabs there. So just make sure that that bottom piece is nice and vertical and matches up perfectly. Okay, just like that, and hold that in place. Give it a good chance to dry there. Okay, and this is where it gets a little more difficult because it's hard to kind of get in there. So what I'm going to suggest you do is kind of pull the tabs back from the inside, like I am here, and get your glue in from the inside. See if you can see it. There's the tab there. You can see it. Let me stick my finger in there so you can see it. These tabs here. I'm just going to pop the glue on from the inside. Okay, I'm just doing 3 tabs here, and we'll do the last one. We can reach that one from the top. And just get your fingers in there and just hold that in place, just like we did, except you just kind of can't see it this time around. And I got glue on 3 of the tabs this time because I kind of don't want to have to go back in there and be pulling things apart and risk ripping it or whatever. Okay, and that just leaves this top little tab, which I'm going to peel back. You can see that top little tab there. There it is in the light. I'm just going to pop a little glue on him and close this piece up. Okay, a little too much glue there, just smear that off. Okay, and there you go. Okay, so we've got this piece all put together, and I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom on this. All right, so here's our bottom, and anytime I'm working with pieces like this, where you've got a lot of tabs that you need to glue together at the same time, I always start with just one and make sure that I've got that nice and aligned. There we go. You can put that down on your table and push down like so. Okay, and then we can go ahead and put glue on the remaining tabs, a nice line on the inside, and then I'm going to put just a little bit towards the outside because I'm going to go ahead and smear that out to the edges so that it's nice and perfect when I close this up. And the cool thing is with this, we actually still have a little hole that we can put our fingers through to push this down. I'm going to lift these tabs up just a little bit, so as I'm pushing down, it grabs more of the surface area. Okay, and then I'm going to actually put this down on my table and use my table to kind of give me some extra pressure. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. And again, if there are some areas that just didn't quite get a grip, I'll just grab my little scrap piece of paper, throw a little glue down, grab something really thin, whether it's a spatula, in my case it's a razor blade, and just go in and clean up those areas. And get that glue in there and just immediately push and hold it down so it stays. There we go. It's looking nice and perfect. Get some more in there. And just push and hold that down. Make it nice and pretty. We're going to go ahead and put our little panels on here. Okay. And I'm going to start by putting glue on this smaller rectangle part here. Okay, so you do want to get these folded at the score mark and get that nice and aligned, both vertically and horizontally. Make sure that you've got it out to the edge there and it's nice and flush along that base like that. Okay, give that a few seconds to dry. And then we're not actually going to put glue on this whole thing. We're just going to put glue basically right up here on this flat part. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to spread that out nicely. And I'm just going to kind of wrap it and center it nicely. Just hold that in place until it dries. You want it to just have a nice curve. Okay, and as I'm pushing and holding this down to dry, I'm also pushing it down to kind of force the arc here. Okay, so that is roughly what it should look like. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process one more time for you, and then you guys can probably handle this yourselves without me having to show you how to do all 6 sides here. Let's get the bottom in place. And just kind of nudge it up against that one that we already have in place, and just hold that in place until it gets a good hold. Okay, just hold that in place, give it a few seconds. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my glue in these top 2 sectors here. And just kind of smudge that out, flatten it, and run that nicely against that piece there. And again, as I'm pushing down and squeezing it between my 2 fingers, I'm also pushing it downward to kind of make it hug that curve even more. Okay, so you see how nice and, I mean, it's as seamless as it's going to get. And you see the end result that we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so just hold that in place. And then we've got a nice little piece that's going to wrap around that. So even if it's not perfectly even up here, we've kind of thought that through for you to make this thing beautiful. Okay, so go ahead and just continue getting the little panels on by beginning at the bottom again. I'm just pushing and holding that down until that dries. Okay, so I'll go through this one more time for you. So we've got that in place. Be patient. Make sure it gets a good grip. Make sure it's nice and aligned. You don't want it kind of cockeyed at all. You want it nice and flush and level at the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to put glue in this little sector here, these top 2. Smudge that out and push that down. And as you're pushing it between your fingers, kind of scooch it down so that it curves more. Okay, this thing's going to look really sharp when it's done. Okay, so go ahead and just continue that process, and then we're going to start working on the top of the cup, and before you know it, we'll be done. Okay, so there is our base. It's actually really cool, especially with this paper. This paper is pretty awesome. So we can go ahead and begin working on the top of the cup now, and that process is going to be pretty much the same. It's just that the pieces are a little bit larger. Okay, and now one thing you'll notice on here is that these pieces are numbered. Okay, we have a kind of a weird numbering convention, but it all makes sense, and the reason we do it is just because it's easier for the machine. You'll see down here on the bottom tabs, you'll see a 1, you'll see 2 lines, 3 lines, see 4 lines in the shape of basically a square, and then you'll see a square with 1 line, and then another square with 2 lines. And this is the order that you want to do this in. Okay, it's very specific because we've allocated some room for the handles in specific areas. Okay, so just make sure that you get everything glued in this specific order. Okay, so just like we did with the bottom of our trophy, we are going to simply bend everything and fold everything at the score marks. Okay, and our cup is going to be shaped like this. So instead of coming out this way like the base did, this is going to be going inward. Okay, so I'm just going to get these first 2 folded. I'm going to walk you through this, show you how all this works. And then I'm pretty sure by now, based on your experience with the bottom, you will no doubt be a pro at doing this. And I'm going to start with the largest tab here. I'm gonna go ahead and put glue on this large tab. And this, again, will have some panels on it. So it will be slightly forgiving, but you still want to do the best you can. Just make sure that that top is nice and aligned, and that you are getting this angle correctly. Okay, I'm gonna put this one down on my table since I can. Okay, and that is our angle. And then you're just gonna take the next tab here, put some glue on it. Okay, and just kind of smear that out a little bit. Tuck it back under and follow that curve. Make sure that you're getting that curve correctly. Okay, just push that in between your fingers. Okay, and grab that next tab. Apply a little bit of glue. And again, it's a subtle curve, but just make sure that you're following it and that you're gluing it correctly. Okay. This last part, this is where you're going to start to see more curvature. Okay. So these last two areas, they don't have a score mark there. That's okay. That's by design. And get that last one in place. And just like that. Okay, just hold that, make sure that it's dry. These little tabs down here, we're going to use these to connect to the inside of this piece once we're ready to do that. Okay, so, all right, so this is 1, this is 2, this is piece number 3. It's got the 3 little lines on it. So just go ahead and fold everything at the score marks and just begin connecting it just like we did with the first one, starting at the top. And just make sure that the top is nice and aligned. That is probably the most important part of this, just to make sure that the top part is nice and flush right there. Okay. And get that perfectly aligned. But probably be a little bit more patient with the top part here, just to make sure that it really gets a hold. And you can see how there's a little gap here, and that is where our handle is going to go once we have this thing fully assembled. Okay. So there we go. And I'm going to flip this over, get a little tiny bit of glue on that little triangular tab there, and get that nice and glued into place. And just hold that while it dries. And then you're just going to work your way down, just like we did the first time. You're going to repeat that process until you've got this thing pretty much fully assembled. And then just like we did the first time, I will go ahead and guide you through putting this thing together completely as far as joining the two sides goes. Okay, so just go ahead and, again, just be patient with this process and get everything connected to its neighbor. Make sure that you're following that angle correctly, and we'll have this thing assembled in no time. Okay, so I have the structure of the cup pretty much put together, and this one is not giving as much resistance as I thought it might have when it came to this part here where we're kind of joining both sides together. But you just want to make sure that, you know, and there is going to be a little bit of resistance. It's going to want to do its own thing, but you just want to make sure that you have this nice and aligned against that score mark there, and that give it a good chance to really set before you move on to the smaller tabs. This top one is probably the most important. Okay, so let's just get that in place. And then we will have to work from the inside here like we did before. So we're going to take these tabs, and let me do this off camera for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. And you see those little mohawk tabs there? We're basically doing the same exact thing, except that we have to put our glue in from the inside. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do one tab at a time. And you can see that little tab there that I just put the glue on, and I got the glue on it, but now I'm flipping it over so I can see it from the outside just to make sure that I'm getting that angle right and getting that glued into place. And then we'll take a look back at the inside again. Okay, and you can see that's the tab that we're going to work on next. So I'm going to get some glue in there. Okay, and this is where kind of smearing that glue may be helpful, because it's a little bit harder to control the flow of the glue when you can't really see everything. As you can see here, I'm getting a little bit more glue than usual, trying to pop out, and it might help to use your dominant hand to kind of position this, and then your other hand to push down. Okay, so just do your best to get that angle. Okay, you kind of may need to kind of scooch things around as you go. Once you got it, you got it. Hold it in place and let it set. Okay, and then we've got two tabs left. I may just go ahead and put glue on both of them. So let me just do that off camera here real quick. Because like I said, it's a little difficult, not only because I have to go inside this thing, but it's kind of difficult to show that on camera. Okay, so just get your dominant hand in there and push it out. Make sure that you're getting that proper angle on everything. And get that in place, and then get that last tab in place, and just push down and hold it until it gets a good grip. There we go. Okay, so we have our cup. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere it to our base. So we're just going to kind of stick that in there like so. Okay, just make sure that kind of get an eyeball, a good idea of where it's going to go. Now remember where your handles are going to be, and if you need to, kind of figure out which side of the base is your favorite, which one looks like you did the best job. Okay, that looks like the best little area that I did. So I'm going to make that the front, and I'm going to have my two handles here on this side. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to put glue on these tabs here, and then we're going to slide it in, and we got to get our fingers in there and push up against the inside of the base. So go ahead and place it. Try not to smear any glue. Maybe just kind of push it down, get it in place. And then, okay, so I'm standing up here doing this, and then I'm just going to go ahead and actually I'm going to start on one side just to get it. Okay, so I'm pushing in from the inside, and I'm pushing out from the inside, in from the outside, and then I'm just going to work my way around, making sure that it's nice and flush and level. And I've got glue on all those tabs. So I can just go ahead and get that glued into place. I've got a little bit of glue squeezing out of there, but that's okay because we're going to put a panel on this, and we've got some little finishing touches in case things get a little messy. Okay, so there you go. There is your trophy. The bottom looks great. Top looks like it needs some panels, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, so our bottom looks great. The top obviously looks like it needs some panels, and that's what we're going to do next. So you want to do is grab your panels and look for the ones that have the little cutouts. Okay, you're going to have a total of 2 with cutouts because there's 2 handles and there's 2 panels for each side, and kind of just get those organized. And then you've got 2 without the little cutouts there. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and just kind of train this a little bit. Okay, and I don't know if this is even trainable. It is. Okay, just kind of give it a little bit of a natural curve like that. And that's just going to make life a lot easier when we go to put these panels on. Okay, and we're going to put them on just like that. Okay, and that looks really good. So what I want to do actually is we're going to, kind of like we did with the bottom part of the cup, I'm going to start with the top, and I am just going to glue just this segment first so that we can get that nice and perfectly aligned at the top. Okay, and we can definitely use our table for leverage once we get that in place. So just make sure that that's butting up against the top nicely. Okay, and then you can put that down on your table and push down to get that glue to really stick. Okay, and then all we're going to do is we're going to put glue on this bottom segment here. You don't need to put glue on the whole thing because we want it to kind of have a natural curve. So just kind of run your hand down and then just hold it in place here at the bottom. Just be very patient holding that in place until it dries. And you can see that it's got a very nice curve. Okay, so hold that in place until it sets. Do not let go until you're 100% sure that that's in place. And I had a couple of great ideas while working on this as to, what you can do with it. And I just realized that this thing almost looks like a chalice, I guess, so this would be good for church events. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, I throw a Halloween party every year, and I have a costume contest. And some years I've actually gone out and bought a specific trophy with like a cool witch on a broom handle, or on a broom flying. That was like the little part on top. But that can get expensive if you do it every year. So this could be kind of a cool little thing to have at your Halloween party too. Okay, so you see what I'm doing here? I just grabbed the other one that has the little hole cut out so that we can get our handle in there once we're done putting this down. So I am just making sure that I'm at least getting glue out to the bottommost part of that little section there, so that when I do put this down, that it adheres nicely. Okay, and again, just make sure that you're holding this down and do not let go until it is completely set. Okay, and that is looking really sharp. Okay, so I'm just kind of going around. Now this part, there's no handle here, not until we get over here. So we're going to grab one of these panels without any of the little notches cut out for the handles. Okay, so I'm just going to put glue on this top segment here. Get it out to the top there. And I'm kind of noticing that the glue is kind of putting it on the side there like that. And again, you can always go back in and clean the tops up if you need to, if you feel like you didn't get enough glue on there. Okay, so just push and hold that down. Okay, you can put that down on your table too if you want to get a little more pressure on there. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and get the glue out on that bottom segment. See there? Just spread that so that it gets down to the bottom there. And again, we're going to be covering that bottom part up. Okay, so just kind of run your finger down here and just make sure that you've got it nice and smooth, and hold it down while it dries. Don't let go until you're 1,000,000% sure that you've got it. Okay. Okay, the next one here, as you can see, we've got the little cutout. So we're going to grab this one here that's got the little notch. And I'm going to go ahead and apply my glue. And I do want to get a little extra glue up at the top because I want that seam to be nice and clean. Okay, get that nice and aligned up at the top. Nice and centered. Okay, that looks good. You can push that down on your table. Okay, I think that was enough time. And then again, I'm just going to go down here, get this in place. Get that glue out to the bottom. I guess, you know, if you want to, you could put glue on the whole thing. I just don't think it's necessary. I think there's going to be plenty of glue at the top and bottom to hold this thing. And I feel like if you put glue here, you're risking losing its nice curve there. Okay, so I probably wouldn't do that. I would just put the glue where I'm putting it and just call it a day. And that is looking like a really sharp cup. Okay, all right, I think that was enough time there. All right, so here we're gonna grab the little piece that has the notches there because we've got that little hole there. Get that on there. Okay, get that glue out to the edge there. Get it nice and aligned. You see what I'm doing here with my fingers? Kind of pushing this with my thumb up to make sure that I've got it nice and aligned and flush with the top, and then just kind of working my way down, scooching things over if I need to. I can put that down on my table and push down. Okay, it's got a good grip. Everything's fitting beautifully. And go ahead and get some glue out to the bottom. Just a little bit on the side there. Spread it out and just kind of hug that curve and push and hold that down right at the bottom there. And do not let go. And we have one left, and all we really have at this point is the handles and then a few little decorative elements, and we are pretty much done here. And we are going to put our little decorative elements on first, and then the little handle. And we are good to go. Okay, so last panel. Okay, get that out to the edge there. Yeah, it looks great. Now this one, again, this one does not have any notches because it's not in a place where the handle is. Get that nice and centered, flush with the top. I'm just going to start pushing down. Push that down on your table. Okay. All right. And I'm going to get some glue here at the bottom. Cover the bottom nicely and hug that curve, push it down and hold it in place. What an awesome little piece, huh? People might actually think it's real. How cool is that? Okay. So that's that. And now we have these pieces here. These are little trim pieces. They are also gold, but they are trim pieces. and there are some score marks on them. So go ahead and fold at the score marks. This is for the bottom. Okay. And I am actually going to, that's going to go like this. Okay, so that should wrap around nicely. Get that butted up to the top there to cover up any imperfections. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm just going to put glue on this little piece here. I'd probably just do little dots and just get little dots on here. You don't want to get too much glue, especially towards that center there where the glue might squirt out. So maybe just one dot on every side of the little circle there. Get some more over here. Okay. And we're just gonna center the first one and then just wrap the rest of them around. And it should stick nicely. If you get a little bit of glue on your project, it's okay. You can always, especially with this foil, you can wipe it off with like a damp rag. But definitely hold it in place until it dries. Sometimes it's hard to glue things on foil, but do your best. Okay, so I have my little accent piece in place there, and we're going to basically do the same thing at the top. Okay, now this one's a little bit bigger, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to do one segment at a time. Okay, and this is going to be easier to glue because it is a larger surface area, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to smear this glue and kind of help it get more of that surface area there. Okay, and also with this putting the foil on foil, it does almost help to kind of help or give the glue the opportunity to almost partially set before you even put it on anything. Okay, so just like that. I'm just going to do one little section at a time here, just so that it sits nicely and works perfectly. You can always fold this back. Okay, and just apply glue on this whole thing, and I'm going to actually smear this out with my finger to help it sort of set faster and cover more area as well. Just going to wrap that around just like that and just push down, just making sure that I've got that nice and on there. Okay, so you're just going to continue this process, getting this little trim piece up on your cup. Okay, you're going to grab this other one here, do the same exact thing, and then we're going to put the handles in. We can glue it to our base and add our little ribbon, and we are done. Okay, so go ahead and put this other accent piece on by starting on one little segment here. Okay, you can just go with the dots. I'm just smearing this out because I'm noticing that it sets faster when there's less area. And I'm actually taking where it folds and aligning that first to make sure that I've got it nice and centered. And I'm also making sure that it's flush with the top. And I'm just holding that in place until it sets. And that was off. Okay, there we go. You can peel this back so that you can apply your next little bit of glue. Okay, and just fold that over, work it on there. Get your fingers up at the top here just to make sure that it's nice and aligned with the top. And I think literally with a very slightly damp rag on this foil, if you do make a little bit of a mess, you can definitely clean it up. I've had to do it on other projects in the past. Okay, so just overlap that. And these two should pretty much join nicely, come together in the end here. Okay, so there is our cup. It's looking nice. Okay, so we're going to grab our handle and close these tabs. I'm going to feed them through like so. Okay, so you see what they're supposed to look like. And then we're going to take these tabs that you see in here. Okay, let's see, there they are. We're going to put glue on both sides and just kind of push them into place. Just glue them. We're going to spread those tabs apart and glue them to the interior of the cup. Okay, and so the idea with this is that you're going to fill it with a gift, so probably some crinkle fill or something just to cover up all the little tabs inside. I figured we already used a lot of paper, didn't want to have to include panels for the inside. Okay, now there's also 2 more tabs at the bottom there. We're going to do the same exact thing. It's really hard for me to get light in there, but you can see those 2 tabs. I'm just going to put glue on both sides of the tabs. Okay, and just kind of push those up against the wall of the cup. And the tab, just going to spread those tabs apart and just push them up against the wall inside. It's very difficult for me to show you that because it's really dark in there. It's dark and scary. Okay. All right, so there's your handle. You're going to do the same thing with the other one. It should be on the opposite side. I'm just going to feed it through. Feed both the bottom and the top through, just like that. And just put glue on those tabs and spread them apart to get them to adhere to the inside of the cup. Okay, so there is our cup in all its glory. I'm going to take my little best ever ribbon and I'm going to put 2 zots on it just so that it doesn't sway back and forth. I want it to sit nice and flush and perfectly on my cup. Let's hope that I picked really good sides for this. Let me see which side I like better. I think this side looks better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just pop dot this right to the front of the cup. Just like that. Okay, there we go. And then we have our base here. Forgot that little plaque. We've got the little plaque here. I'm also going to put 2 pop dots on my plaque. Okay, and then all that's left to do after this is just embellish it with some rhinestones because it is a cup. So you can definitely make it really cool. Okay, so I'm just putting the little dad plaque on there. And again, like for my Halloween party, I'll probably put like best dressed or best costume. You could do a print and cut, you could do a stamp, whatever you want to do. So there's my little plaque. Okay, and that's pretty much it. All that's left to do is put some glue on the bottom of this guy and adhere it to your base, and you are all set. So I hope you guys had just as much fun putting these together as my team and I did bringing it to you. And if you do make one of these projects, I'd love to see your version. So be sure to post a picture, whether it be on our Facebook wall or in our brand new Facebook group on Facebook, on your blog, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, wherever it might be. Definitely drop me a line and let me know that you've made it because I'd love to add your version to our Dreamers Gallery. So thank you so much again for joining me, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.